Now, excuse me, continuing on with my teaching, sex is not free, you're married. And I'm trying to show you that we have a whole total wrong perspective of what Jesus considers marriage and what Jesus considers divorce even. I tell you, if you haven't been watching, you're just coming over, that I was saying that a marriage license doesn't make you married. Some states require you to have a marriage license. I said, if the state you live in requires you to have a marriage license, get a marriage license. I'm not trying to tell you to go against what they have implemented. It doesn't hurt anything. As long as you know that marriage license, that piece of paper doesn't make you married, it doesn't make you divorced for marriage. But now the Bible did say give a writing for divorce. Now, going back to marriage, because I said that with divorce. A writing for marriage is not biblical. You don't have to do that. But if you did, you're still married. It doesn't matter. Especially if you consummated, the two became one. In divorce, I told him, I said, when you look through the Bible, nowhere in the Bible does it tell you to go to a lawyer, pay fees, pay filing fees, clerk fees, costs, legal fees, all these fees to get divorced. It said give that person a writing of divorce. Marriage really was a private institution. It really was. It was a time where you could just go to the church if you were coming to church, join the church or whatever, and they say, are you married? You say yes. There was no having to prove no papers, whatever. You brought the person up, you introduced them as your husband or your wife, and these are our children, yada, yada, yada. That was it. Like I said, when I showed you the papers the last time, marriage really caught on as a way to stop interracial marriages. If you look up the history of the marriage license, just type in the history of the marriage license, and it should come up all these places where you can go and check them out. But in particular, it started so that whites couldn't marry mulattoes or blacks or Koreans or Mexicans or whatever. They had to marry whites. And I told you before, here in the state of Alabama in 1905, I think it was, put on the books that whites could marry only whites. And it was voted off in the year 2000, George Bush Jr.'s first term in office. And I'm teaching you this because one day I was challenged. When are you married in the eyes of God, according to the Bible? A guy asked me at work. And being a pastor, I've told people, yeah, you're shaky, you need to get a marriage license, you need to get married, blah, blah, blah. And I found out that what I taught was wrong. So if I'm going to be a true man of God, I'm going to teach you the truth. And it may turn everything you believe about marriage upside down. But as long as I'm teaching you truth that I can back up with the Word of God, hey, it is what it is. All right, so in John chapter 4, not 1 John, but John chapter 4, Jesus is talking about having to go through Samaria. There's a woman there that's a Samaritan. Samaritans were what they call half-breeds, some Jews mixed with another race of people, and now they're Jews, but yet they're called Samaritans. And remember, Jesus was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. So these people being Jews by not racial marriage, but inter-nation marriage, he has to go by there and tell them the gospel too. Remember, the gospel didn't come to the Gentiles until after the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, and Peter and I think Paul started going out to the Gentiles, and they were included into the fold at that time in the book of Acts. So he has to go to these Samaritans because they are Jews. People call them half-breeds, whatever, but nevertheless, they're Jews. So he has a conversation with this woman at the well. He told her to give me some water to drink. She asked him, how would he draw for the woman? See, how is it being a Jew, you're talking to me, which am a Samaritan? The Jews have no dealings with the Samaritan. Jesus answered, said to her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that said to thee, give me to drink, thou would have asked of him, he would have given thee living water. It's a setup. Jesus is setting her up because there's something he wants to do for her. And so in verse 11 says, the woman said to her, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence or how will you be able to give me this living water? He says, art thou greater than our father Jacob? Who is Jacob? Israel, of whom the 12 tribes of Israel are named. He says, which gave us the well and drank thereof himself, and his children and his cattle. So obviously Jacob got out there and got in the mix with these people and produced these breeds called Sumerians. Anyway, so now you have this breed that of Jews that Jesus is speaking to. He says, verse 13, Jesus answered and said unto her, whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, but whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst, but the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. The woman said unto him, Sir, give me this water that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. Jesus said unto her, this is what I want you to see, go call thy husband and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said unto her, thou hast well said, I have no husband. He says, for thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou hast now hast is not thy husband, in that thou saidest thou truly. Jesus was telling her, you have a husband, but the one that you're with is not your husband. And, you know, if somebody got to go do something, you know, it can go around. Anyway, he said the man you're with is not your husband. And we close things behind us and stuff. And the man you're with is not your husband. Thou hast rightly said. He was telling the woman, you had 5 husbands, but the one you're with now is not your husband. What did he mean? He meant exactly this, and I'm going to tell you this how we did it. I've had many wives in my life and so forth and didn't even know it. This woman had legitimately been with one man from the beginning, which was truly her husband. But obviously she left one man and went to another without giving a writing of divorcement. And then went from that man to another, and from that man to another, not giving a writing of divorcement. And so he had to close the door. He had to close the door on this thing about marriage to her. And so he said to her, you had 5, because you're going from man to man to man, and you're not getting a biblical divorce. You're not giving a writing of divorce. Now remember, they followed the letter of the law. You know, they worship well. They knew to worship in Jerusalem. They knew they were Jews. Whether they knew about the law or followed the law to the letter, I don't know. But anyway, Jesus was letting her know, you done had 5 husbands. The one you with is now not your husband. Why he said 5 husbands, but if the one you with now is not your husband? Because whenever the 2 become one, you understand what I'm saying, when the 2 become one, it is an act of marriage or adultery or prostitution or whoredom. And you can probably throw fornication in there too. Fornication is a little different though. Sex is not free. It's never free. So she's going from man to man, not getting that biblical divorce. And she's saying, you done had 5 husbands. The one you with right now? Girl, he ain't yours. Go put him out. Anyway, he was saying, the one you with now is not your husband. And I say this to you, many of us, including myself, have had multiple sexual partners over the span of my life. And it was either marriage, adultery, fornication, prostitution, whoredom, and just throw some fornication in there for, and I explain that. So, what do? Maybe you're probably figuring out the person that you're with right now has been married because they had sex before you, and maybe you're not saved and you're wondering, oh Lord, well, what do? Do we got to divorce and go back to our first person we ever had sex with? Well, here's the problem with that. If that person had sex before they had sex with you, you was committing adultery. You were never married in the first place. You were committing adultery with somebody else's husband or wife. Getting a little confusing? All right, I'll stop. I'll pick it up there next time. I just want you to know, sex is not free. You're married. So I want you to understand this teaching to be a blessing to you and to others. I will explain this. Do you go back somebody else, or you stay with that person, or you really, really married, or you just married on paper, but in the eyes of God, or you're not? We'll talk about that. Bye-bye.